How are you all? Are you well? Happy Remembrance Sunday and all of that. If you have loved ones that you are remembering, or if you're just remembering for them again, then it's all good. We will be observing the Quilt Sandwich at 11 o'clock so please do join us with that. I've got to work out days slightly late, so we do it half time, but that means I did delay. Oh, I haven't thought about this. Oh, now there's a conundrum. Can we start it? Well, we should have thought about that. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Haven't quite thought it through. Lots of audio static, apparently. Let's just double check everything is on. And can we double check your mics on? There we go. We're all good. We're all good. Excellent. Good morning. Right, let's try that again. Hello, hello. Who do we have with us this morning? We've got Karen and Harry. Hello, and Hayley and Amanda. Good morning, and Marilyn and Michelle. Good morning to you all. And Natalie and Rona and Pauline and Jacqueline and Kaz, who's just written noise.
Oops.
Noise.
Sorry.
There's a sound issue. Hopefully that is all resounded? Resolved. That's the word. I'm struggling with words today, so it's a good job it's your show. Sam's here, Sandra's here, Helen's here. Good morning. And Anne. No, it's not you, Anne. It's us. It's not you. It's me. Oh, even your mum said, "Who's hissing?"
It's me, Mum. Sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. We're all good now. And Pam and Carol and Pat and Bronwyn, good morning. And Alison, hello. And Michelle's joined us as well. So, and Myra, hello, hello. And Belinda and Donna, good morning. And June, hello. Welcome, welcome. So this morning it is the much long awaited. Really, that doesn't sound right. I mean, there are words there, maybe in the wrong order. Anyway, it's the long-awaited, much anticipated. Oh, if I add a word in, that's what helps. Morning, Jacqueline. Is the quilt. The quilt. It is the Kelmscut quilt. It is from this. It is the William Morris. Oh, the Minerals, the Pure Range, the Minerals Pure Range. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. From William Morris. And Jane and I had a little rummage around the warehouse and discovered that actually our Misty Blue went rather beautifully with it. Could have been made for it. And then also the seeded cotton gives a really beautiful natural finish because the this collection, the Minerals collection, was all inspired by nature. It's going back to nature, as you know, all of the arts and craft movement was, and everything that William Morris was inspired by all came back to nature. So it's really a really beautiful collection. It's called the Kelmscut, not because it uses the Kelmscut colorway, which was his last collection before that, but simply as a nod to his home. Yes, 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 and very lovely it is too. We have also got our lovely Smarf on the show today that we are picking up more of. So if you've loved it, and we only have a handful actually physically here, and you want a ready-made one in the beautiful William Morris toile, then we collect the rest of them today. Hooray! Happy days! Now, we promised you a variety of ways in which to get the quilt. The quilt. And it is a sizable quilt. 57 inches by 65 inches. Sizable. And if you want all of the fabric for the front, then here it is. You get a metre of your seeded cotton, 75 centimetres of your Misty Blue, and your full layer cake there, which is rather fabulous. So that is one option. If you have already bought the layer cake, because I know a lot of you have, and you just need the top-up fabrics in the correct amounts, then we also have that, and we've called that, I think, the finishing off or something. Quilt finishing off kit. Finishing kit. If I read it, helps. Can't read, can't speak. Day 2 of my water fast. It's all good. Right, now this is the Pure Fruits. We've got 8 meters of this left. So we haven't cut it into half. We had a choice. We could half meter heaven it, or we thought if you wanted to back your quilt in it, there is an option to do that, and we haven't cut it. So we will cut this to your orders, okay? But there's only 8 meters of that left. Now, oh, Jane, I didn't pick up all the backing fabric options.
Can I get them?
Oh, would you mind?
Tall?
Just mute your mic so we don't hiss as you go. On the top. Slide it across. Thank you very much. We've got a few backing fabric options. I think one of them's already sold. Basically, every time I do a walk around the warehouse remotely on FaceTime with my supplier, I always keep a little beady eye out for any of the William Morris backing fabric because I know that you absolutely love it. And I've managed to get a few little bits, not a huge amount, a few little bits. There were 2 pieces that were around the 1.5 and they've gone. Ah, look at this. Thanks. Here we go. Nip, 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 nip. Okay. Just a, you know, discreet little pile. Actually, Jane, Emma and I were talking about this morning, and because I've got, so to give you an example, this is one of the backing fabrics. This is the autumn backing fabric, and this is 2 meters by 108 inches, which is approximately 270 centimeters. And Emma said to me when I loaded the price, "Is that right? That feels like a lot." Well, it is a lot. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. That'll back your quilt and some, so you'll be able to make matching cushions.
Yeah. So 207, bear in mind I'm 180 centimetres tall.
So it's as wide as you.
So, yeah, taller than,
tall.
yeah.
That's really rude, sorry.
Hence the water fast. So no, it is a whopper, but that's just to give you an idea of just how huge it is. If so I was trying to work out the best way to describe it. It is a good sort of the equivalent of about 7 or 8 meters of fabric, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of normal quilting width fabric in there. Yeah. So it's vast, it's huge. But like I said, I've got 2 of the autumn. I've got 1 of the verdant, which is very beautiful. And some of you have had these from when we did the Natasha Makes Market tote bag, because a 1/2 meter of the extra wide fabric is the perfect amount. It was a pattern created purely for backing fabrics. The William Morris Strawberry Thief in red. And I love that they're on such a large scale with these.
Yes.
We did have them for a little while, just the normal quilting fabrics, but they're on a much smaller scale. And then I have a couple of not quite 2 meters, they're about 1.5 meters, so they're on a really special price. I think they're $34.99. I've got that in the the mole. Love the mole. That's your mole colour. And then I think this one's already gone. I think Emma said this one's already sold, because again, literally just 1, and that was it. So that was what I'd managed to stockpile, and I realised that that wasn't going to be enough for you guys. I'm not making, that's not a criticism. I'm just saying, you know, we like a lot. And then some of this kind of fabric came my way, and this looked very William Morris-esque to me. So let me just show you this. And I thought that this might be perfect. There. Oh, Jane, we haven't got our light on over there. Why is that light on? I don't see which one's not on.
Don't switch in case I switch the one behind. I think it's that one.
Bing, bing. Oh, that's better. We said this morning, didn't we? We feel a bit too prepared. We stood here for 10 minutes going, what haven't we remembered to do? You see, when it's a hurry at the end, we switch everything's ready. So these are a really special price. These are $34.99. They are basically 2 meters by 2 meters, which is vast again, isn't it? Oh, hang on. You want that end. Now,
You can socially distance with this.
You can, absolutely.
Again, you're going to have enough to do the back of your quilt and some besides.
There's a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a huge amount there. So if you want something like that, then go for it. We have that. Really badly folded. We'll deal with that later. And then I've also got a handful of these. Now these are 94 inches by 40 inches. So what's that?
It's about 1 metre by 2 metres, just over 2 metres.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And these are at a silly price. Really silly price. But they're lovely, aren't they?
They're really pretty.
You've got big sale prints in there, florals. Actually, it's meant to go.
Not quite wide enough for the back of that quilt, but it would certainly make good backing fabric for slightly smaller quilts.
For which we do a variety. There you go. There's your big print up that way. I think it's really lovely, and it is at an incredible price. No, I'll tell you for why, it was a miscut from somebody else, and they didn't want it. So I went, I'll have it. You guys love a bargain. We'll have it. We'll sort that out for you. So that's why it's on. And when I say it's on at a good price, it's on at a really good price. So do make the most of that. The only other thing then, yeah, they are the, yeah, they came from House of Alistair actually. Morning from Aberdeen. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, the only other thing before I hand over to Jane is that we do also have the Fat Quarter Pack. So if you love the William Morris and maybe you want to do some cushions or one of the bags or whatever that we've done in the past from the William Morris, then we do have a handful of those left. What else have we got? And we've also got some, I think we've got one or two left of the trios, the Fat Quarter trios on the website. I'm not sure if we've tagged those. I'll have to ask Sems if she can. But there we go. That is today's fabric in a nutshell. There we go. Jane, I'm going to take all of my whatever and get out of your way and hand over to you. Thank you so much, you very clever lady. Everybody, it's Jane.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Gosh, we've had this quilt, haven't we, for quite a while, ready to go. And I kept looking at it and I kept thinking, oh, it's such a pretty quilt. Lovely, because it's like neutral, but it's got the blues and the green tones in it, so it's just a really soft, like classic quilt.
It's got warmth in there, hasn't there? And
yeah.
You're right, it's totally classic. Lorraine would like to know how to work out how much backing she'd need for a Super King bed.
I don't know how big a Super King bed is. I don't know what size that is.
Is it on my chart on the wall?
Bedding dimensions, oh, king size.
Jane, did you turn your mic back on?
I think I did. Is it back on now?
They're saying you're very quiet.
Can you hear me? Is that better? Technology, I love it. I don't know if I switch myself off or switch myself on.
Oh dear.
Sorry, everybody. What happens when you're all prepared and you think you know what you're doing?
You see, I feel this because I always get told off for being in a rush, but when you're in a rush, stuff gets done.
Yes.
And
You're
then,
like automatic, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like boom, boom, boom.
yeah. Is she still very quiet? Hang on.
Oh dear.
Gem, are we still quiet? Still no better?
What's the budget?
Hang on a minute. Right, come on Jane, let's switch. Let me go and have a look at what's going on in the corner. See if there's anything over that way that I need to have a look at.
Let me just move on to Natasha's way.
Oh, there's the mouse.
Oh, not anymore. Thank you.
Right, let's investigate. Right, I don't know why that would be. Is that better?
Do I need to just...
Oh no, I think it was muted over here.
Right.
On your thingy. Actually, I have absolutely no idea if I've just done something right here or not. Or I might have touched the wrong bit. I don't touch these normally, but I think it's still not right.
Can you hear me now?
Any better? Any better? Well, I don't know why I'm saying it's not me that's got the problem. Do you want to? I mean, worst
Come
case is
undone,
we.
That's why it's right down by my waist. The microphone.
Oh.
That helps.
Okay. But if you were hungry, we would know,
Yes.
right? Oh, there we go. We blame technology, completely not.
Wardrobe malfunction.
Are we good now? Hooray!
Yes. I think, is that better?
I'm
People
going to
hear
say
me now.
I'm going to say
I do apologise.
much better, says SJ.
Oh,
there
I'm
we
so
go.
sorry.
Don't worry, these things happen. Luckily, we have a very understanding, lovely audience who are here with us.
Now I'm all hot. Having a moment now, a bit of a power surge. Oh. Right, I do apologise. That was me completely fallen down my top again. I thought I clipped it on and it wasn't clipped on. There we go. Right.
As we were.
As we were. Back to it. Right, okay. So, Natasha said to me, we have this beautiful layer cake. Can you do something with it? And I was like, yes, I can.
I like to set you these challenges.
Look at these beautiful fabrics in here. There's just some lovely colours. I mean, this pattern will transfer to any layer cake that you have. So it's, you know, it's a versatile pattern. We've called it the Kelms Cut because it's a tribute to William Morris, because that's the fabrics we've used, but that's the only reason it's got that title. It'll transfer to any layer cake that you have. Traditionally, layer cakes are 10-inch squares. There's usually 42 squares within the layer cake. So the first thing I did was I divided them between light and dark, medium squares. So I took the light ones to one side and I put the dark, medium ones to one side. There's slightly in this pack, there's slightly less dark ones, but there's some that are more earthy tones, so I treated those as medium ones and put them to one side. So then the next thing, we've got the natural cotton finish, which is lovely because it's got this little bit of seeding in it, which is really sort of like earthy and again went so beautifully with the fabrics within the layer cake. And I cut 11 10-inch squares of the cotton of these ones. So I'd got a pile of just plain 10-inch squares, same size as the layer cake. The next thing I did was, I mean, this is the unit that we use. Now, for the established quilters and patchworkers among us, you'll see that's the 3/4 triangle unit.
Nice.
It's not a difficult quilt. You know, this you could...
Is this a beginner quilt?
Yes, I think, yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay.
You might, yes, I don't... It's already cut for you, apart from your 10-inch squares of your background. You're not going to have to worry about measurements, and it's 10 inches, there's no halves or 3/4 or 7/8 or anything like that.
Easy
so
peasy.
It's going to make life a lot easier for you.
And if you are someone that had already bought the fat quarters rather than the layer cake, can we use the fat quarters to do this instead?
You can use fat quarters. You won't get 42 squares out of your fat quarters because it's an American fat quarter, so it's only 18 inches. So
Right.
you're only going to get 2 10-inch squares from your fat quarter.
Right, I'm with you. Yes.
So you would, from a 14, you'd only get 28 squares. You could make the pattern, but it would come out smaller.
Okay.
So,
okay.
and you'd have a lot left over, so you could make wider borders.
Yes.
So
you could make it up another
yeah,
way, just
it's
a slightly different
transferable.
way.
Excuse me, I've gone very dry in the mouth for some reason.
Oh, bless you.
I'll get over it. Okay. So from your 10-inch background square, on those, you're going to mark the diagonal. So as I always do, mark from the middle out to the point, from point to point, just across one diagonal. And then you're going to layer those up with your light squares. So you take one of your light squares, and as I say, you'll sort out, in theory, you want, if you've got 42 squares, which I think there is in this pack, does it say? Yes, there's 42 in here. So you'll have a pile of 22 piles of 21. One light, one dark. So we've got 11 of these squares. Now those among you will think, well, that's not all of the squares, but we're making half square triangles in the first instance, so we're going to be making 22 half square for triangle units. This is where the math comes in, because for every one of these you get 2.
Nice.
So we're layering it up right sides together, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch either side of the triangle. Right, not the triangle.
It's going to become a triangle.
It's going to become a triangle. We're doing 1/4 inch either
Very
side of
soon.
the square.
Betty is still in force today, for the simple reason that I haven't been back to Chandler to pick up all of my electrics yet. Can't believe
She's
I
a
did that.
Lovely machine.
You've really enjoyed using it, haven't you?
Yeah. When I learnt to quilt on my nana's hand singer machine.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so, you know, it did a straight stitch and that was it, which is really pretty much all you need for patchwork and quilting. Straight stitch, you know. If we start to venture into applique and stuff like that, we need zigzags and stuff, but generally speaking, we're just using a straight stitch the majority of the time.
You just don't have all the whistles and bells of
No, and you don't
threads
have
being
the
cut and all that
threads
malarkey.
cutting and all of
I
the
know
things
Jackie
that go
says that
with it.
she's got 1/2 meters of it. How many 10 inches? So if it's been cut accurately, well, we always cut to 20 inches, don't we?
Yeah, so
rather
we're
than
doing 1/2 meters. So
because we
in
like to have a bit of
theory-
wiggle room. But it depends if it came from us. We didn't sell this by the meter, so it depends how good other people's cutting is.
yeah, in theory, you would get, if it's cut at 20 inches wide, you would get 8 squares from each
Yeah,
1/2 meter piece. If it's cut at 1/2 meter, you're only going to get 4.
yeah.
So
I know that we're always generous with
yeah,
how we
because
cut.
actually 1/2 meter is something like 19.7 inches. Something silly. It's not.
Well, yeah, there's
It's
the
not
ruler
20
right in front
inches.
of you.
It's less
No.
than. What are we here? 50?
I think it's like a centimetre
Yeah.
out or something.
It's 19 and 7/8. So you wouldn't get, if it's cut accurately at 1/2 meter, you're not going to get 2 lots of 10 from the width. You're only going to get 1.
Oh,
So-
Helen's just said, what colour would we suggest to use for the other William Morris layer cake? One of your browns, one of your earthy browns,
Yes.
Helen, for the other ones. One of the, yeah, definitely, yeah. We'll look at your choices later, Helen. I would imagine probably one of the,
The brunette or something like that.
well, I'd go lighter because it's
Lighter.
got some quite dark tones in it, that
Oh,
one.
right, yeah.
So,
maybe like a
like the
caramelly colour, yeah.
cappuccino type batiks. We've got one of those left. That would work. Oh, that would look beautiful
look
with
lovely
it.
with it,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Can you do a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance? Says Caroline.
Can I?
Yes.
Yes, I could.
Do
Do I need to?
I don't know
No.
if she asked another question that I've missed, and we're just coming in on the end of that one. Hang on, who was it that asked about the 1/2 meters? Was it Caroline that asked about the 1/2 meters? I
I suppose, yes, if Karen is saying she could maybe... The thing is, this technique, if you've got smaller squares, you can apply it.
Just do it with smaller squares.
So if you cut your squares at 9.5, cut your background squares at 9.5.
Yeah.
That's the only time that the measurements will matter, is that your background square, your cream that we've used, or whatever colour you want to use, is the same size as your square that you start with. You could make this with charm packs. Get a smaller quilt, but the pattern is transferable to whatever size square you use.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
at this point, as I say, we're not really doing any measuring. So your squares could start. So if you've got a metric 1/2 metre, which is metric anyway, 1/2 metre, I'm talking rubbish now, but if you've got a 50 centimetre piece and you cut your 2 strips at 9.5, then you will get 8 squares,
Yes. So that's all you need to do. Just
Yeah.
take a 1/2 inch off if you need to.
if that works for you. So-
Is the pattern available as a PDF purchase? It should be.
I think Josh has worked his magic.
I did ask him just to crop the photo because there was one of the dog beds in the back of the photo. So it will be. It will be. Definitely it will be.
So we've gone 1/4 inch either side of that marked line, and we've cut on that line. So we've got 2 half square triangles, and we're going to press towards the pattern fabric. So when I want my seam to go underneath one side, I have the fabric I want it to go underneath on the top. So you're just going to press those, and you're going to end up with 2 half square triangles. So that's why I said, 2 squares gives you 2 triangles. So that's why we are only using half of the amount of the lighter coloured squares.
Can you do me a favour and just move those fabrics and pop them on the dresser in front of you so that we can
These
see what
ones,
you're doing?
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't tidy up before I left. How very remiss.
Terrible.
I know. We
There
were
we
laughing
go.
about my husband and kids today, weren't we? Saying that the first thing I do when I come back in from doing the animals, well, after they've left for the school run, is turn off all the lights.
Yes. So you'll do all of those. So do all your lights and your background squares. So you've got a bundle of half square triangles with the background fabric and a light of your squares. When you go through your layer cake, you'll probably find there's 2 or 3 of the same pattern in your layer cake. So I suggest you get yourself a good variety of squares from your layer cake, because that will then give you a good variety of half square triangles. So the next thing you do with this size square is you're going to trim it. I'll use that one. You're going to trim it down. So you take your dark squares, and you will need all of your dark squares, and you're going to trim a 1/2 inch off one side. Now this is because I've used a 10-inch square, and making 2 half square triangles has taken that 2 1/4 inch seams off.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, if you want to be really accurate, and if you're using a different size square, just measure your square first. This one should be about 9.5. Depending on your seam allowance, on your machine, your 1/4 inch might be different to mine. But, I'm saying take 1/2 inch off, and that will make that square the same size as the half square triangle unit.
Nice.
So you take 1/2 inch off one side, turn it round for 90 degrees, and take 1/2 inch off the other side. If you've got a piece of fabric and there's a pattern in the middle that you want to keep centralised, it won't make much difference for this pattern. Take 1/4 inch off all the way round, and that'll keep it in the centre, but it's 1/2 inch off 2 sides. So you can see there, 1/2 inch off there, and 1/2 inch off that side. So now that square, 9.5, and it will be the same size as your half square triangle.
Oh my goodness, we've only got one of the autumn backing fabrics left out of the William Morris one, so well done if you managed to get that.
Well done. So now we're going to mark the diagonal line across from corner to corner on that dark square. And we're going to place this on top of your half square triangle. Now I've got the seam going from bottom left to top right, so I want the seam on this dark fabric to go in the opposite direction. So you've got your seam going that way, and my diagonal line is going the other way. So we're going to sew across that seam. Just line it up as best you can, so it's nice and square on there. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch either side of that line.
Oh, she purrs, doesn't she, old Betty?
She's lovely, isn't she?
Geraldine, I thought you were at work today. She's snuck on. Couldn't resist, I think. There's been a lot of love for this quilt.
It has come out beautifully.
Are you pleased? I mean, it must be one of those
Yeah,
things. You
it's
sort of
like-
skipped in with it the other day.
Yeah, it's like, look at this. sometimes, you know, you have an idea in your head and you think it's going to work, and then as you start to put it together, you're thinking, no, this isn't right, this isn't going to work. But this has come together so beautifully. I'm really pleased with it.
It's a stunner.
So we've gone 1/4 inch either side of that line, and then we're going to cut these in half. Along that mark line, and this will give us 3/4 square, 3 triangle square units.
That is very clever.
So it's a quite straightforward way of making something that's quite
So you just have
nice.
to do them opposites.
Yes, as long as you remember, and you'll know if you do one, you'll know straight away you've done it wrong, because you'll be sewing on the seam that you've already made, which won't work.
Geraldine wants to know how much backing fabric she needs for it, please, Jane. It's 57 inches by 60, I want to say.
It's 65, is
Or
it?
is it 65?
65.5 by 57. So if you had of ordinary fabric, 3.5 meters,
Okay.
which you then cut in half and join back along the selvage edge, that will make you a piece that's
Or grab yourself one of
extra
the...
wide, and you'll be,
Yeah.
1.5 meters.
If we're running out of the William Morris extra wides, then we do have the House of Alistair ones, which Emma has very prettily named. What does she name them? Hang on. Let me see. She's called them Silver Swirl and Silver Flower. There we go.
Lovely. They'll go nicely, won't they? So if you look at these triangles now, you will see that they're not the same. One has the pattern fabric on the top and one has it on the bottom, which works out really quite nicely. It gives you a variety of patterns. I put mine with the 2 cream squares together, like so. I mixed them up so I'd got different ones going against each other into pairs.
This is where having a quilt wall works really
Yeah.
nicely, isn't it? Because you can
Lay
put
it
them
out
up
on
and
your
see.
bed, or if you've got one of the design walls, which are lovely, you can lay it out.
Valerie wants to know if you can use Quilt As You Go with this.
Yes, you could. Yes.
Oh, I can hear that thinking, Jane.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think at what point you would want to
You
do
would
the
do it.
quilt as you go.
Would it be one of the big blocks?
You could do it from this square. You could do it from this square.
What about one of the big ones? You see when you
Yes,
see the
'cause you
diamond
make a
within the
four.
square?
And make a 4, you could do it that way. Yes, you could. Yeah, you could. Or you could do it individual squares like that, whichever way you like to do it. On your pattern, you will have some variety of layouts. Mine's in a black and white, but yours will be coloured. Because I discovered that you can play around with
Do you wanna
the
go close up?
setting. Go across there.
Oh yeah, yours will be full colour. I just
Yes.
didn't press that button this morning when
No,
I
it's
printed it
okay,
off.
'cause
Soz.
I only needed it really for the template, but I just remembered that we did this. So I have a play with the patterns and have a look, because by putting the blocks in different directions, you can get some lovely effects. You know, you've got a diagonal stripe going there. There's a different layout there.
Oh, they're
and
all
a
very
different
lovely.
again, and they're all lovely. And of course, this is the beauty of patchwork. It makes it unique to you. We start off with an idea, and I love when we go to workshops, because we start off with an idea, and then by the time we've finished, other people have just tweaked it slightly or done something else, or a different colourway can make it look different, and it's lovely. It really makes it unique to you, which is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
So for this one that's behind us, I sewed the 2 cream ones together. So laying them right sides together and lining the seams up. And at this point, I'd probably put a little pin in just to keep myself lined up with the seam. So just placing the pin against the seam line and just matching it up with the seam line on the opposite square. Just because I want my points to match up, and because you've got the seams going in the same direction, can sometimes make it a little bit bulky and it wants to move. So just 2 pins there, just to hold the 2 layers together. And we're just going to 1/4 inch seam, joining those together.
It's amazing how different machines sound, isn't it?
Yeah. She's got she's very quiet actually.
She is very quiet, yeah.
So you end up with 2 units together,
Sorry,
like
Jen, my
so.
thingamajig is just timed out, and there we go. Yay, there we are.
And so I would sew all of, if you're going to do this pattern, sew all of your squares together in pairs to make pairs, and then you've got your pairs. If you do the method I said, we'll end up with 42 of these units. So when you join them together into pairs, you've got 21.
Nice.
Which is, and then I joined them into 3s, and then into 7 rows of 3 basically. But because when you look at this, there's like that square pattern, I'd got, you know, you've got all of these pairs together. So I took one row, I joined them together into rows of 3, trying to make the patterns not be next to each other. That takes some time, and you'll always find one that
that snuck through and you didn't notice.
And it's like, oh, those 2 are together, but it all adds to the niceness of the pattern. So you'd have 3 rows together, and then I tipped the other row upside down so that the small triangles were together.
Nice.
Now you can see on here, I've got these 2 together, and these are the same inside, and I wouldn't have chosen normally to do that. I would have tried to make sure that these were different fabrics and that these 2 weren't together. You might not want to do that. You might like to have the same ones together. Again, it's your quilt.
Yeah, as a big block, and then it's a whole different look again, isn't it?
That's right. It's your quilt. You can do what you like with it. No, but I'm not going to come around to your house and say, excuse me, you didn't follow my pattern.
No,
That's
but you
not
might
what it's
come around
about.
and demand a cup of tea.
Yes, and cake.
that sounds more like actually
cake,
no
please.
coffee.
Especially today.
yeah.
So joining the squares together. Now you're going to have points here, and I suggest that you do, when you sew your rows together, try and make all the seams go one way, and then the second row the seams go in the other way, and that way you'll be able to nestle your units together, and that will help you get nice points. It doesn't always come together, don't worry about it. You know, when it's on the bed, on the back of the sofa, you'll be hard pressed to find the one that didn't quite match.
And why would you spend your time looking?
Well, this is it.
Do you
Just
know what?
enjoy
That's
the quilt,
thing.
snuggle
Once the
underneath
quilt
it.
is out being used, it's a bit of a shame if that's all you're looking for.
Yeah.
Errors in a quilt.
Well, we're our own worst critics, and then anybody says to us, oh, that's lovely, the first thing we tend to do is say, yeah, but we all do it. We're all guilty.
This is very true. We can't just take a compliment, can we?
No,
And just say
we're
thank
terrible.
you. Thank you
the
so
answer
much.
is go, take a breath and say, thank you.
Is it a British thing? I don't know.
I think it might be.
I think we've got. We generally have people, you know, watching in America and Australia and all over. So let us know. Are you able to take a compliment elsewhere, or is it just us? Claire says tea and cake. Yes, please. Oh no! Oh, so yeah, so it was her son's birthday yesterday, and the school wouldn't give out the huge cake that she'd made for virus reasons.
Oh, for goodness sake!
So she's like, "Well, more for me."
Yes. So joining those together, this is the pattern that you'll get, and you'll get that square there, and then you get your 2 squares of your background fabric. Again, as I say, you'll have a play, have a look, read through. When you read through your pattern, you'll see the different varieties that you can do.
Did you use all of the squares? All of the squares in the layer cake?
Majority.
Because I was just thinking that would make a lovely, lovely cushion in its own right.
Well, this is it, yes. You may have a couple of squares left over.
Right.
I can't remember now. I think
the other problem with being organised is that you can't remember the leftovers either.
I have used some leftovers for the demo, so I think, yes, I think I had a couple of squares.
Did you just top up with some of the darker fabrics because there weren't as many darker fabrics? That's what I seem to remember. In my head, that's what you did, but whether that's true or not, I don't know. Cut some more
just for demo purposes because I wanted the variety. So if you wanted to, you could make all of these blocks, but you're going to have like a set, one row of half blocks. So if you wanted to make the blocks of 4 and join the blocks of 4 together in 3s and then 3 rows, and then you'll have a half one. That's what you could do. You might just want the 3 rows, and then you've got the extra row to make a cushion with if you wanted to. You could just turn them and make a cushion. Again, it's your quilt. Do what you like with it. There's no rule. There's no rule.
But that's scary though, isn't it? Because when we get a pattern, we want to follow it absolutely exactly.
And there are, and I mean, we all know who we are. There are of us that like to follow it religiously, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
And those who've never followed a pattern
in
their life.
And then there's people like me that go, oh yeah, I like that. But what happens if? And then you start playing with it and looking. So the technique is there. We've done 3 triangle units before. It's nice because the squares are already cut. You just have to cut the background squares, and you don't have to worry about 7/8 of an inch or half an inch. It's just a 10-inch square. Put it together with the light colour, diagonal, 1/4 of an inch either side, cut along the line, press those open, trim your darker square down, 1/2 an inch one side and 1/2 an inch on the other side, not opposite sides. Is it perpendicular, is that?
Perpendicular is at right angles like that.
Yeah, so that would be, down at one side and along the bottom. Don't do it on both sides, otherwise you're going to end up with a rectangle and it won't fit, and that'll be really annoying. So one side and across the bottom, diagonal line again, put it opposite side round, and that makes your 3 triangle unit. You'll have one that faces one way and one that faces the other, so that when you place them together, you get your 2 background squares together, and that gives you that shape. As I say, you could put them all like that. That gives you another pattern. You will get a diagonal type stripe going through it. You could put it upside down like that, and again that'll give you something else going on. There's lots of different things that you can do with this unit to make different patterns, so have a play with it. I mean, you put the 4 together like this. I don't think I've got another 3/4, but if you put them like that, you're going to get a pinwheel effect with the 4, with these little triangles going round. So that's another thing to look at. You can have really good fun. You know, put them out on the bed on your design wall and just move them around and see how they play. Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about the quilting that I did on this, because I think you've got quite a big blank area here. And when I did it first, I was like, oh, that's going to need a lot of quilting in that. And, you know, sometimes you can be put off by that because you think that's a lot of blank space to fill with quilting. And if you're new to quilting, it can be a bit scary. You can do straight lines. You could do like a Greek key pattern. Just follow the edge of your walking foot going round and round on there. That would look quite nice. You could just do a diagonal line through it. And
it doesn't need to be complex, does it? It
doesn't have to be complicated. If you don't feel that you're ready to start doing curvy shapes and things like that, don't do it.
However, you did, and I'd just like to say that even Angie Atwood, queen of Westerly rulers, said, oh, do I spy some ruler work there? And you didn't comment because you're too modest, but I went in and went, no, Jane did it freehand. So I also have to say happy birthday to Angie for yesterday.
Yes. Yes, I saw that. She had a lovely box of beer, didn't she?
Yeah.
I have put on the back of the pattern the quilting template. Now, this isn't exactly the same as mine because I drew mine freehand and cut it out and just sketched over it several times. but I've had a go on my computer to make something that's similar, and I think that will look equally as nice. So you can do that to transfer this onto your quilt in two different ways. You can, before you layer up your quilt, you can lay this underneath, lining the square up, because it's nice, and Josh has done a lovely job of transferring this. You've got the diagonal lines on here and the line within the square. If you want to, you could cut this square out so it's not so much, but I think it's nice having it on the A4, and it slides underneath there and it sits within the square. You've got this line here that you can match up with your seam line. And if you want to, and when I was doing mine, I drew the line from point to point there as well, just as a reference to line up this line here. So I'll do that on here. This is the fade away marker that I'm using. So, you know, you can quilt with this and it will fade away. You can use one of the ones that irons away, but just test it a little bit on your a scrap of the fabric, just to make sure it doesn't leave a ghost mark, because sometimes it can leave a ghost mark. So you can see there, I've just drawn a line from point to point there. I've got my seam line, which is another reference. So placing that underneath there, I can line that up with the lines that are on there, seam line on that line there, and then this line on there. And I know that that's pretty central then. If you want to, you could pin it, but I think just because it's just a small part there, you can see that now, and so you can transfer this by just drawing over the top, following the line. I would curve that maybe. It's pointed, I think, on the pattern. Maybe curve it round, maybe follow the pattern, whatever suits you. Again, it's just an advice. It's not, you know, you don't have to follow it exactly. Just marking that round, following it over the top. And that just gives you the line to follow. So that's one way of doing it. Now the way that I did it was I drew mine out on a piece of paper and then I cut it out and laid it on top, because I'd already layered my quilt up. So
oh, okay. Well, that's the other way of doing it, isn't it?
I'd already done that and then thought about what I was going to do, because sometimes I think when you've got the whole quilt done and as you're layering it out and smoothing it, you get a better feel of the quilt, and sometimes that tells you what sort of quilting pattern it wants on it.
Quilting is very different to patchwork.
Definitely.
Very different, and it's where I need to improve for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself to be an expert quilter. I'm still quite early into my learning process with quilting. I've been a bit frightened of it, to be honest, and before I took over my shop, I hadn't done very much quilting at all. In fact, I would, you know, happily admit I'd much rather send it to be long arm quilted, because it's a bit daunting when you've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of effort into making a quilt top and you don't feel confident with your quilting. You worry you're going to spoil it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, and I think it's, again, like we were saying, we're very overcritical with ourselves, but you have to start somewhere. And when I took over the shop, I had this idea that I wanted to have a quilt in the window every so often to display the fabrics. Well, to get that done and get it done in the time, you've got to quilt it yourself. Because most long arm quilters have got, you know, quite a long waiting list before their quilt, you know, they can fit you in.
Yeah.
So the ones I know, it's usually a month or even two sometimes before
Really?
they can get longer, particularly this time of year if people have got quilts they want to give as gifts at Christmas.
Oh my goodness, because I know that Martina was thinking of setting, you know, Martina Rooney.
Yes.
She was setting up, she bought herself a long arm quilter, so it looks like you're onto a good business there then.
I think, you know, and there are people that don't enjoy the quilting. They like the patchwork process, but they're not interested in the quilting at all. And again, that's fine. we do our own thing. We do what we love, and we do it because we love it.
Helen said something very along those lines yesterday, and it really resonated, and it's lovely to hear you say the same thing. It's like, if you buy something and you buy it, you enjoy making it, and then you gift it, that's great if that's the purpose for it. If you buy it and then actually you don't enjoy it, or actually it's not what you wanted, or your taste change in colour or whatever, you don't owe it anything.
No, that's right.
We get into this guilt, don't we, because we've bought something, therefore it must be finished to the end. But actually, if this isn't the bit that you enjoy, get somebody else to quilt it. If this is something that you want to try, maybe try it on a cushion first.
Yeah.
And then give it a go after that.
Get yourself some calico or some fabric that you haven't left over, that you if it's a fairly big piece. Start with sort of like a 12-inch piece. Make a quilt sandwich, 2 layers of fabric and a bit of wadding, and just play. I don't ever go to a piece of quilting completely cold. I will have sketched it out several times on a piece of paper, because I find that helps me personally. That helps me. It sort of gets a muscle memory of the movement of the shape.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I'll get a scrap piece of wadding, a bit of calico and a bit of scrap wadding, and I will, first of all, I'll just start again, just having a feel of the motion of moving the fabric, not making any sort of pattern shape, just the motion of moving the fabric underneath the quilt machine again, just to get the feel of it and gauge what speed I need to go at.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel I need to go a little bit faster than I'm comfortable with, but you do have to remember that you can stop, because it's very, very easy, particularly if you're doing a wiggly squiggly pattern, that you're like, okay, I've got to keep going, 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 I'm calm. Just remember that the machine stops and it doesn't go any. When you stop, particularly if you've got a machine where the needle stops with the needle down, you can stop. Position yourself again, move your quilt slightly. It's going to be a great big thing that's underneath your machine, and if you've got a fairly small machine like this, there's not much room here, so you're going to have to scrunch it. I start off by rolling mine all neatly and holding it together. By the time I finished, it's up over my shoulder, it's screwed up, it's scrunched, it's pushed through. The machine is halfway across the table, because as I'm pulling it and moving it around, I'm moving the machine as well. So
it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's a workout in itself.
It is. It's a process. You get better at it. You get more confident with it. You worry less about it. I think the first time you do your own quilt, you don't breathe for about 10 minutes for that first bit. You're holding your breath the whole time. And I always used to say to my ladies when we were having a workshop, just remember to breathe.
Yeah.
Because you hold your breath. And you have to remember about your shoulders as well. Because you're holding your breath and because you're worried, you get tense and it knots up your shoulders here. So do a bit of quilting, stand up from your machine, roll your shoulders back. I always put my hands together behind my back and push them down. It just
it opens everything up.
Stretches that bit there again. Because again, you can get very tense and tight up here, and you'll do half an hour and you'll go to stand up from your machine and you're like, I can't move, it's really sore. So again, just think up, look after yourself while you're doing it. Okay, what time are we on? Because I don't want to go over.
We are on 53. We're going to have to guess at the time lag between us going out. And so if we go a little bit early, excuse us. If we go a little bit late, again, excuse us. There is a time delay. We're going to have to go silent here slightly before 11. I've set an alarm on my phone. James.
Oh, that's good.
How
that's
organised
good,
I am. But I must remember to turn it
on
off, otherwise next week we'll also have an alarm on my phone.
So, layering your quilt up. I've done a little piece here. I've got another block of floor here that I was going to do. This is another 4 gone together. That's got a different fabric in each part, so you can see, you get some really lovely effects there. So with a quilt, when I'm layering my quilts up at home, I'm very fortunate that my mum's got a large dining table, and so I can borrow her dining table. It's got glass on the top of it, so I don't have to worry about damaging it, because I use the quilting pins.
Right.
Traditionally, they say to have 4 inches all the way around of your backing fabric more than the quilt top.
Oh, okay.
If you're taking it to the long arm quilters, I'd give it 6
Okay.
inches each side all the way around, because they
Not
need to have it
extra.
to roll onto their machines.
Right.
They've got rollers that attach on and then they roll it round. So they need to have the space before the quilting starts. So they need to have a good 6 inches really.
Do we need to invest in one of these?
Definitely.
Okay.
Love one. I'd love one. Glenn asks me every Christmas, what would you like for Christmas? I'm like, a long arm quilting machine. He's like, yeah, in your dreams.
Need a new car
Yeah,
first.
the cost, they're usually about the cost of a new car.
Yeah, I know. Helen said that
If
she
you want
bought...
the all singing, all dancing computerised ones, which are lovely because they give you a computerised all over pattern. I mean, you can get slightly smaller.
You can get ones that tuck under your bed.
Yeah. And you can get ones that are like a tabletop one. And they just, you know, you've got the room then to do one. So
You see,
there's
Helen's bought
varieties
herself
of them.
a quilting frame, but she's too scared to use it. I don't know what a quilting frame is.
A quilting frame is one that's like the long arm quilter, but you can put your own machine on.
Oh.
When we were quilting by hand,
Mm.
you know, before we knew about long arm quilting machines and before there were even machines, there was a quilting frame that the ladies would all put each other's quilts on, and then they would join in together. That's where the quilting bee comes from.
Oh, wow.
They'd all sit round the frame and do a little
And do a little
section
bit.
themselves by hand, and they chat and exchange news and things like that. So we've always used quilting frames. You can get individual quilting frames that you can have in your hand, or you can have on a stand for your hand quilting, that you put a section in at a time. Some people don't use a frame when they're hand quilting, they prefer just to hold it.
Yeah.
Again, you will you'll try all the methods and you will find your own way of doing it.
Oh, this
You
is
know,
amazing.
And it's a bit like your patchwork. There's no right or wrong way. It's what works for you.
Well, Diane's suggesting that we crowdfund you a machine.
Bless you. I leave you to bits. Yeah, so that's what you know, you'll find your way. I'm only doing a very brief demonstration of quilting. We can go into more quilting. I'm not an expert quilter. I will say that. I know what I know, and I've done a little bit, but I'm you know, I was taught by Barbara Cheney. Now, Barbara Cheney's work is absolutely amazing. Her stitches are all the same size, so many to the inch, on all of that. And that's competition level quilting. You get big stitch quilting, yeah. You get big stitch quilting, which is done with thicker thread and is more sort of, I want to use the word primitive, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it's more organic and it's lovely and it holds the quilt together. Because let's face it, the quilting is purely to hold 3 layers of fabric together. So, you know, you can do as much or as little. You know, you can tie a quilt, just pull the thread through the 3 layers, tie it, knot it off, cut the thread, and you can do that within 4 inches apart is usually the right amount.
I mean, Karen is just suggesting that we buy one. No, that I buy one.
Yes.
And that then everyone sends their long arm quilting needs to us.
Yeah.
She's like, it could be another arm of your empire.
Yes.
Pardon the pun. I don't know that I would trust myself.
We'd never be off it, would we? This is the trouble. You get no demonstrations because we'd be quilting all the
Be like, soz.
So what I'm doing mine is I tape the backing fabric down. Now I tape it in the middle, opposite sides. I don't go from corner to corner because the danger is that you're going to stretch your fabric and pull it. So I go from the middle to the bottom, north, south, east, west first, and then I smooth my fabric and I tape it down as I go. Holding it, you want it tight, but you don't want it too taut. You don't want to stretch it too much because even by stretching it, when it relaxes, that's when you're going to get wrinkles in the back of your quilt sometimes.
I quite like wrinkles in the back of my
Yeah,
quilt.
some
I mean, it's
people
one
do.
of those.
sort
It's
of
one
that-
of those looks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once you wash it.
That's right. And then I put the wadding on the top. Now, you can spray base the wadding if you want to. I don't for big projects because I'm going to pin it anyway. I just think that's a waste of spray base. But some people feel happier if they've spray basted it. Spray base the wadding, not the fabric, because the fabric will just absorb the glue and you'll end up with a gloopy mess. Smooth your wadding out over the top. If you've bought it and it's in a big bundle, let it out of the bag let it out of the bag and let it relax. So ideally, spread it out over the backing and leave it overnight.
Right, we shall continue this.
We're going to
we are going
pause
to
now and remember
and we'll be
our
back
armed
with you.
services and everybody else that's given our life in service to our country.
And we'll be back.
And we'll see you back in 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Right, okay. While we were just reflecting then, it came to my mind that I hadn't talked about the borders for your quilt because I've got so engrossed in the quilting. You'll remember that we only used half of the light coloured squares. So I cut one of the squares into, I cut all of the squares. I took the light squares and I cut them into 4 2.5-inch strips, and you'll get 4 out of your 10-inch square. Just cut them up 2.5-inch lengths along the square. I then mixed them all up and put them into pairs and then joined the pairs together. The short side I got 3 pairs joined together across, top and bottom, and then I had to trim some off, and so I joined the other 3, I joined all of them into three lots of 3 pairs, and then I added the bits I cut off from the top and bottom to the side ones and put them on. So I'd gone round with a thin strip of the misty blue and then these pairs of what was left of the light coloured, and then that was the quilt top. So that was, I'd forgotten about that bit for the border. So going back to your backing, you'll have the background taped down, your wadding on top, you'll have let it decrinkle, unlike this piece here.
I know what you mean.
Yes. Anybody think it'd been shoved in the corner? And then lay your quilt top on top, centering it and making sure that you've got a little bit of wadding. Your wadding should be about the same size as your backing fabric, really. If it's a little bit narrower, that's fine, as long as it's not exactly the same size as your quilt top. Because as you quilt, it will pull in, and
Right.
the more densely you quilt, the more it pulls in. So again, you know, give yourself at least 2 inches either side if you're quilting it yourself. If you're taking it to the long arm quilters, they'll want more. Check with your quilter, because they will have, you know, depending on their frame and their size, they will tell you how much more of each they want.
Right.
And quite often your long arm quilter will have wadding and might even have backing fabric that you can purchase from them.
Oh, okay, right.
So they'll do
yeah.
all of that for you. You'll even get some long arm quilters that will put the binding on for you to
I love
then
them even
sew
more. Oh.
onto the back. You know, you
Okay.
can hand sew the back bit yourself. I know Amanda does that, Amanda Little.
I mean, yeah, does she, I want to say that she overlocks it at some point.
She will. She'll do that for you as well. She'll overlock the edge if you want her to, which makes it perfect for then putting your binding on yourself. So yeah, talk to your long arm quilter. They can become your best friend. Even if you don't use them all the time, they'll baste quilts for you. So they'll put the 3 layers together and do a long tacking stitch through it at intervals.
Wow.
So if you like hand quilting,
You've then got it then.
it's done for you. Or even if you like machine quilting it yourself, it's done for you. So yeah, we can, make friends with your long arm quilter. So you put your 3 layers together. Now with the curved safety pins, you just regular intervals. And again, I start from the middle and I'll go north, south, east, west through the whole quilt to make like a cross shape through the middle. That stabilises the middle of it. And then I'll work out from the middle out towards the corner, working in rows and using my hand a bit like an iron. Again, I'm just pulling it down. I'm not stretching it. I'm just making sure that it's nice and flat and level. And I will put the pins a palm width apart in regular intervals, working out towards the edge. That way you can smooth the quilt as you go, getting rid of any crinkles and lumps and bumps as you go out towards the outside edge. When you're doing a small piece like a cushion top, the spray based is perfect and it's enough to hold it.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to be doing a lot and moving it around a lot, pin it anyway, even if you just pin it around the edge, just to hold it. But small pieces, your spray based is enough to hold it. So to
so Joanne wants to know, how do you find a long arm quilter to quilt your quilt? Sorry if that sounds like a dumb question. It's not. I mean, we used to work with Amanda Little, didn't we? And she's Little House Quilting, I think.
Little Quilt House.
Little Quilt House.
She's brilliant.
So you can always search that and ask
talk
her.
to your local quilt shop because they'll know who your local or the nearest long arm quilter is. Talk to your friends. If you belong to a quilting group, they'll know. Or Google it. Nearest long arm quilting to you. You know, there are people out there. There are some people that have a long arm machine and they don't want to do it as a business. They just want it for their own quilts and they might do them for friends because they like the process. There are people that have their own businesses. There's quite a few. Some patchwork shops have a long arm. I think the Bramble Patch has a long arm quilting business attached to the shop. So
okay, right.
The Quilters Trading Post. They used to do fabric, but now they just do their long arm quilting and that. So they've got a beautiful old converted schoolhouse.
Well, maybe we need to look into this.
And they let you go and look and watch. It's lovely.
Do you just peer with your nose up against the window? Although if it's one of those old Victorian schoolhouses, they have the really high windows, so you can't peep in. You've actually got to go in. What's Jane doing?
So I would do my straight line quilting first to stabilise the quilt. On this quilt, I went in the ditch. So I went down. If you could imagine, this is the top of my quilt with the cream squares running from top to bottom. I started at the top there and I quilted along this side here down in a zigzag because I didn't want to quilt through that seam. Because I didn't want that flat within the pattern that I was doing.
Yes.
But where I had the seams here, where you've got the 2 dark squares against each other, on this one here, I did quilt through the seam there.
Okay, but not through the light.
Well, it would have gone this way. You could see it going. It would have gone like that. So with my walking foot, just seam down that seam there and along that seam there. So that stabilises the quilt then. If you don't want to do any more quilting to it, you could just leave it like that, that would be enough. And then, as I say, I went along the edge in the ditch here, just going down that side, got to the bottom. Now this is the thing with quilting. I didn't come back up. stopped at the bottom, took it out and came back up to the top and quilted from the top down to the bottom again. If you go with your quilting, because you're going through 3 layers and your walking foot does walk across the 3 layers, but it does push it to a little bit. If I'd gone from the bottom down to the bottom and then back up again, it would have just moved the fabric just slightly and you would have ended up with a wrinkle.
Right.
This is quite important if you're just doing straight line parallel quilting, because you'll end up with just moves the fabric just slightly and it ends up with that little ruckle. Some people like it, and again, it's your quilt, do what you like. But for me, and I think it gives you a nicer finish if you just always start, it doesn't matter which side you start from, but start from the same side each time with your quilting. That's where it's different from patchwork, because we always say, don't we, do opposite seams if you can. So I would have done that to stabilise the quilt, and then the free motion side of it, you will have in your, hopefully, you might need to purchase these, but I think most machines, the walking foot tends to be within a deal with your machine.
Yeah,
or you have to buy it separately because they're an expensive piece of equipment. Quite often you'll have what's called a darning foot within your feet of your machine. Excuse me. It can look several different types of feet. This is an open toe.
Oh, hang on. Yep, I'm there.
This is an open toe darning foot. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. They're quite nice because you can actually see within. Others are circular, completely circular. They're good as well. Some are plastic at the bottom here, some are metal. They're all slightly different depending on your machine. They are free motion embroidery feet, darning feet they're known as, but they're great for your free motion. So I'm just going to change that over. If I can get it off, there we go.
Susan says that she used to have a local quilt shop that you could go in and rent the machine there.
Yes.
And it was great and worth the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some long arm quilting will offer you at that service. Amanda will teach you on her machine if you wanted to. Amanda at the Little Quilt House, she does do lessons.
Where's she based?
Staffordshire. She's in Staffordshire.
Oh, is she near you?
Yeah, just up the road, fortunately. It's nice.
Has she got little Jane nose marks up her
yes,
windows
definitely.
as well?
Definitely.
Let me in. That's social distancing for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like our dog's nose art.
Definitely. Now, some machines you'll want to drop your feed dogs. They'll have a little switch which you can drop your feed dogs for. I'm going to be controversial here. Some people will argue with me. I don't drop my feed dogs because when you're free motioning, the foot doesn't connect, it doesn't act as a presser foot, so it doesn't push against the feed dogs anyway.
Right.
So with my feed dogs up, if I put my quilt under my machine and sewed, it wouldn't move with the darning foot on.
Okay, okay.
So I don't bother. Some people will tell you that might damage my machine. I've been doing it for years and my machine's perfectly fine. But obviously just check your instructions.
Yeah.
You know, it's your machine, you want to look after it. We pay a lot for our machines, so, you know, if you want to drop your feed dogs, you can. With free motion quilting, you want to have the bobbin thread at the top of your fabric.
Okay.
So I started in the middle here, so I would take my thread, my top thread, I would drop my needle. If you've got a button to drop your needle, I would drop my needle in, holding this top thread, and then bring it out. Drop your foot down, because that engages the feed dogs, and that then helps you to pull the bobbin thread up, she says confidently. There we go. It should just pull that bobbin thread up. Start again. It should catch the bobbin thread and just pull it up. It's not going to do it today. I've been quilting on this machine and it's not. Have I got it caught up? It's going to be one of those days, Natasha.
Oh, that's all right. But this is good, because if I'd have done that, I'd have said, oh, well, Betty can't do that. But you've already done this on Betty once. So you know
Yes,
that
I
Betty
have.
can do it.
I know that she can. I know she has the power.
But this is what happens at home, and this is why we don't cut to something else. Sorry, Jane.
No, you can watch me sweat.
As much as Jane would probably wish that I would right now, it's one of those things that actually it's finding that way. Why isn't it doing it? So let's investigate and find out. Is it because...
Make sure I've got the bobbin in. Aha. Yeah.
And there's your problem. The bobbin was caught.
That's it. Let's see
So
if we can get this done.
if it's not working, there's going to be an explanation for it. And there's your explanation. The bobbin was caught underneath.
There we are. We'll try again. We'll give it one more go.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Betty. See what we're doing there.
If you can get an extension table on your machine, for your machine, get one, because it does help with your quilting.
Everything is quite compact on Betty.
Yes, she's a lovely.
She has a
She's a
very
lovely-
tiny extension table.
She's beautiful. Right, we'll try it again.
I'm glad you had to do
There
that
we
with the
go.
I don't know how to do the top loading, but the side loading bobbins. Oh, there it is. There
So there's
we go.
the bottom thread. So
If
we've
you move
pulled
your
that
hand
up.
slightly, we can see that. There we go.
She's there. Look. So try and pop your needle back in now to where it was when it came up. Lift that and put those threads to the side. You want to make sure that it is under your foot. If you've got one of the feet that's completely round, just get your unpicker and just pull the threads under the foot and behind. Now, you're going to need to find, if you've got a machine with a speed regulator on, they're perfect, because you can set it at the speed that you're comfortable with, leave it there, and you can
Right.
put your foot down as hard as you like.
Is that our Betty?
Betty doesn't have one on.
Oh, Betty.
So we just have to work out how much we, you can see if I just don't do anything, it's just staying in the same place. So you have to move the machine at a fairly, move your fabric at a fairly regular, steady pace. I'm not going particularly fast. And I'm just following the line. You will find when you do this for the first time, you're going to end up with long stitches and short stitches and loopy stitches. You'll find, this is why we say practice, practice, practice. I've not followed the line here. I've gone a little bit off piece there, but it doesn't matter.
The thing is, the pen's going to fade away,
Yeah,
so no one's going to see it anyway.
I could
In
have
fact,
done
it's
with
already
being,
faded so much you
yeah,
can't really see it
this
anyway.
is why.
Claire said that her machine tells her when it's time for bed. If it starts to play up and nothing I do fixes the issue, I go to bed. The next day the issue is fixed first time.
This is it. I always say that if it's not
Yeah.
working, go and put it away and go and do something else and come back to it. You will find that the mistake you thought was so awful, you can't find. I've gone really off here. Never mind. This is how not to do it, folks.
Well, it's all right because we can't actually see the marks that were there, so whatever you do looks lovely.
You want to get yourself into a rhythm with this, a nice steady pace. The quicker you move your fabric, the longer your stitch. The slower you move your fabric, the shorter the stitch. So obviously, the narrower the throat on your machine gives you less room with your quilt, so you can get it bunched up.
It's actually quite therapeutic to listen to because there's a lovely steady rhythm going on.
Breathed in the wrong way there. And so you just follow the line and don't be frightened to go back along where you've just stitched. So with this one, this design I've done, I went back along the long petal shape to do the short petal shape.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It doesn't matter if the line of stitching doesn't go exactly on the line you've just stitched. It's not the end of the world. And then you can come back down. Just make sure you keep that thread out of the way. And as I said, don't be frightened to stop. if you've got a machine that stops with the needle down, that's lovely. If you've got a machine like Betty that doesn't, you know, she stops when she stops, just keep her still, drop the needle in. And as I said, just, you know, stretch your shoulders back, lean, you know, go and have a cup of tea, walk around a bit and then go back to it. I think the thing we do is we think, right, I've started quilting now, I've got to quilt it all.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't need to, you know, some of us have several projects on the go at a time, but you could do a little bit of quilting, put it away, come back to it the next day.
Elizabeth says that she doesn't have like the slider things, the slider mats.
Yeah.
So she just polishes the table really well before she starts.
It's a good idea.
Very good idea. Susan wants to know if anyone here uses quilting gloves.
Yeah, you can use quilting gloves. They give you a little bit of extra friction. They're nice to have, and also, you know, the cotton ones, they'll, you know, they prevent you getting the oils off your hands on your quilt if you're going to be really pernickety about things.
Is it something you would like me to stock then? That's the next question. Could you imagine if you did just a white on white quilt?
Yes.
Then you might potentially
You would
want to
definitely
use
probably want to have
some
your
gloves there.
gloves.
But this just goes to show you don't have to have an all singing, all dancing machine.
No, you don't.
You
As
know,
I
and
said, you
that's
know,
why-
it's straight stitch at the end of the day.
Oh, there you go. Anne just said this is fabulous for me. Having she's got her mum's vintage Bonina, and this is so very helpful. Thank you. Sometimes, even when I haven't left all of my cables at Hochanda, so I can't use my all singing, all dancing machines, I like to bring out an older machine.
Yeah.
Just to show
This is
that
how not to
there's
quilt
no
it.
there's no magic. You know, it's not that we've got magic machines. You can do this on any machine, and look at that, isn't that beautiful?
You can see I've gone on, it's not meeting in the middle there because I started in the wrong place. I should have started there.
Doesn't matter.
But, you know,
Still looks good
even
to
I
me.
could leave that like that. I wouldn't pick that, but you could leave it like that because once I've tied those ends in, well, I know I haven't got a needle here, but you would thread those ends in and just slip it through under the needles are in this cupboard, aren't they? This one here with the
Yeah. Go up one. So we've had a little tidy up.
no, not in that one.
Oh no, maybe the top cupboard. We've got other cupboards in,
We've
you
got other
see. So
cupboards,
now we
it's
don't know
like-
where anything is, and it's the first one that hasn't got all the divides in. Next one down.
Next one.
Oh no, where are they?
No, where have they gone? No, never
Hang on,
mind.
I'll come and find.
Never mind.
I'll have a rummage in my cupboards. What are we looking for? Quilting needles?
Just an ordinary needle. Just a sewing needle would be do.
Actuals.
A bigger-eyed one is helpful. Might be one on here.
Hang on, we had them yesterday.
We
Look.
did.
There you
we
go. Incoming.
Lovely. So you want one with a fairly big eye but not too bigger. So I use embroidery needles. I tend to, a number 9 because it's got quite a nice eye, but it's quite a thin needle. And I just like both threads through because it's got a nice big eye on it. Shall I take this close up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you want to do that?
You can see this. So I've got both the threads on the needle, and I'll just take the needle in and take it along just through the backing. Might go into the wadding, but I don't want it to go through to the back. So I'll pull that through. It hasn't taken both threads, it doesn't matter. Do it one thread at a time if that's what is easiest. And just push that through. And then I'll pull the thread just a little bit and snip it as close as I comfortably can against the fabric. And then they'll just go back a little bit and they're taken in. Now, I can either, with it, when I've finished, I just pulled the thread through, so I can either pull that back thread up to the front, or I can do the other thing and pull it back down. But just by pulling that thread, it lifts the bobbin thread up, and I can just grab a hold of it with my needle. And I would probably just tie that once, twice. Whoop. My big finger's in the way.
And you do that in the front, you don't do that, you
I
don't
would,
tie it
you
off
know,
at the back?
You could take it to the back as well. You can do it either way, whichever you feel more happy with. The more modern machines have the locking stitch on them. So
Does that mean you don't need to do all this?
You don't need to do all this, and you can, and then you can just snip the threads with the with the thread cutter, and that will tie those ends in. What would happen if you did that? You end up with little taggy bits at the back where you use your thread cutter, because it gives you a little thread.
Yeah.
Now you can either leave that because you're not really that bothered and it doesn't worry you, or you can snip those a little bit shorter.
Okay. Wendy says cotton riding gloves are cheaper than proper quilting gloves and work just as well.
I know people that use marigolds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Other washing up gloves are available.
Ali says that she needs to get some quilting gloves as her hands are dry, her hands dry out, and she loses the grip on the fabric.
Yes.
And the other thing is, you know, use something like your Seams hand cream, because it's made for working with needles and threads. Karen did a milliner's course, and her hands it wreaked havoc on her hands, and that's why she created Seams, and that's why it's called Seams, because you can use it with your fabric. You can still sew with it and not grease up your needles.
So that's my badly quilted piece.
Oh, hang on. Let's have a close-up of said badly quilted. You see, I'd be.
You can see it's wobbly. It doesn't meet in the middle. It's terrible.
But I love it. I
But,
think it's beautiful.
you know, you could put that. That would be your beginner one, and if you did that as your practice piece, it wouldn't matter. And I think Barbara Cheney and Chris Francis taught me to do patchwork and quilting. And a lady called Diane Clark. Their advice is, with your quilting, do 5-10 minutes a day rather than half an hour once a week. It's familiarising yourself with the process. Just have a scrappy couple of pieces of calico with a bit of wadding in the middle, and just practice.
Give it a go.
Free motion is very much, can teach you to do free motion, but you've got to do it to get the feel of it, to know how it feels.
That we should just be good at it.
Yes.
Like there aren't other things that you wouldn't pick up a tennis racket and go, oh well, I'll just be.
I'll just go and play Andy Murray. Yeah, it's like everything that you do takes practice, and we all know. We'll look at our first quilt and we'll look at it now and we'll think, oh my God, the seams don't match. What was I thinking putting those colours together? All of this. I mean, this isn't a very good example of quilting, to be honest with you, but my very first piece of free motion quilting, it was a similar sort of flower shape. Most of the petals are square at the end. Some of the stitches are long, some of the stitches are short. Again, they don't meet like this one. They don't meet in the middle. It doesn't matter. It's quilted. It was finished. Yeah. It was gifted. The person I gifted to loved it. They didn't look at it and go, it's not very good quilted on this. They were just delighted that I'd given them a quilt.
And this is what we need to focus on, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's going to take practice. You're going to need to practice. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel, the easier it will feel. It's like doing anything that we do. When we first did our first patchwork, we were cutting up fabric and things like this. The more you do it, the easier it feels.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, there you go. Ali says she's going to have a go today while it's all fresh in her mind.
Yeah.
And Claire says she needs to try it with her bouncy foot.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth would be delighted with your result today. So, you know, that's Elizabeth. The thing, isn't it? Yeah. We're hardest on ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, you know,
yes. Oh. Just give it a go. Get some scrap fabric that you don't care about and just play. Just play. Give yourself time. At the moment, we've got a little bit of extra time, haven't we? At the moment, you know, we're not going anywhere.
I suddenly realised that I don't go many places
anyway. My life hasn't changed very much at all.
No, that's mine.
Not a very sociable person, what can I tell you?
But it's a different type of social, isn't
Yes.
it? You know,
I was going to say,
this.
we haven't got the option anymore, have we?
Yeah.
You know, if we wanted to go and see someone, we can't. And
So
that's
to
it.
have this is really
You've
lovely.
got the time now to play and have a practice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Your mother says, don't try to have a conversation whilst quilting.
Yeah, that does help. Doing it
I mean,
live
I don't
on
know why
Facebook's
she'd say
not-
that right now on your show, Jane. I don't know why that would spring to mind for her. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there we go. Right, lovely people. We will see you on Monday then next week, 10 o'clock. Gosh, who knows what we'll be doing?
Who knows? We'll have a plan by then.
We will, of course. All the best laid and all that.
Yeah.
We will see you then. So take care. Have a lovely rest of the day. I might have a chance tomorrow, Jane. I'm going to say yes.
I think you are, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, potentially yes. So I will see anyone there. And yeah, have a great rest of the day and get quilting, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.